Yeah, hi. This is part 2, so watch part 1 first or you're gonna be horribly confused. Number 11, Episode 2 and Beyond. In Episode 2, it's Yolei and Cody's turn to go to the digital world. They will unlock the Digimentals of love and knowledge. As I mentioned before, this means that only Sora and Izzy out of the original children will come with. This is also the reason that only the relevant partner Digimon show up when they arrive in the digital world. What are the odds that Piyomon and Tentomon, and only those two, should be waiting at exactly this digital portal at exactly this point in time? Remember how I said that Season 2 is riddled with convenient coincidences? Yeah, this is another one of those. This is similar to the fact that only the Season 2 main characters, TK and Kari included, get to bring their Digimon to the real world during the days. First of all, why? They never do anything of real value here until the Kaiser is defeated. The reason for this is obviously that more time is spent in the real world in this season compared to Season 1. I guess the writers were worried that the audience would be bored if there weren't any Digimon in Digimon during these scenes. To combat this, they drag these monsters out of the computer monitors, even though they have no business being here. And secondly, if the partner monsters are just gonna hang around in the real world this season, then why don't Tentomon and Piyomon come along too? The out-of-universe answer is that they aren't the main characters. Why should Tentomon and Piyomon hang around in the real world if we're not gonna see that much of Izzy and Sora? And the in-universe reason is... well, there is no in-universe reason. This is poor writing. The rules of logic are no longer important. In the digital world, Yolei and Cody awaken their partner Digimons, Hawkmon and Armadillomon. At first, Yolei doesn't want to fight, but Sora tells her that Mimi was like that once. And someday, Yolei will cherish her memories of her time in the digital world. This is apparently enough for Yolei to activate the Digimental of love. I've discussed before how weak these Digimental activation scenes are. This might as well have been purity related. It's so non-specific and doesn't really have anything to do with love. Also, if the tale of Mimi's actions is what motivates Yolei, then why isn't Mimi here instead of Sora? There's no inherent rule saying that Sora has to come before Mimi in some sort of specific order. Cody has been paired up with the Digimental of knowledge. He says he doesn't have enough information about the digital world to fully form an opinion about it yet. He does want to know more though. Izzy notes that he has a curious mind, which is the bare minimum to have any relation to knowledge. While this situation would be more fitting if there were a quest of curiosity, it seems the Digimental of knowledge is activated by Cody simply craving knowledge. I would have guessed that something called the Digimental of knowledge would only be activated once an extra amount of knowledge is acquired. Like if you learn something super important. However, this is not the case. Vmon gets captured by the Kaiser and displays his intellect.
やれるもんならやってみろ。けど、俺はお前のテストなんかにはならないぜ。
なんだって？
俺はずっと待ってた。大輔と会うのをずっと待ってたんだ。だから大輔に会ったばっかでお前なんかの手下になってたまるかよ。
That's a really dumb thing he just said there. I guess that's what can be expected from someone who attacks by slamming his head into things. Hey Vmon, if you're so certain about not being able to become a slave, then how about we actually put it to the test? Let's put a ring on Vmon and demonstrate how strong their bond really is after just one episode together. If he were able to resist the ring, it would confirm his statement and bring him and Davis closer, and it would also plant a seed of doubt inside the Kaiser's mind. But no, instead of backing up these empty words, Horusmon swoops in and destroys the ring. It's like a Deus Ex Machina. You know, wouldn't it be fair to say that Agumon waited a long time for Tai too? So couldn't the same be said for him? However, we see later that you're not immune to the evil rings or even spirals just because you've waited an eternity for a human partner. Remember the virus Metal Greymon? Hey Vmon, you're talking shit! Oh hey, here's something else that doesn't make any sense. The Season 2 Digimon return to their baby forms once they go back to the real world. Fair enough, they save the extra energy and all that, I'm fine with that. But why don't Patamon and Gatomon do that? Why don't they become Tokomon and Nyaromon? TK theorizes that this is because Davis, Yolei and Cody have the new D3 Digivices, while TK and Kari are stuck with their Season 1 models, even though that wouldn't explain anything. And already in the next episode, TK will get his own D3 update, and what do you know, still no Tokomon. Patamon isn't any different from the other child Digimon, so I really don't know why he doesn't degenerate. And Gatomon is supposed to be weaker now, right? I mean, at least revert her back to the Plotmon stage. None of this makes any sense. At least she's a tiny kitty cat, so she doesn't draw any attention to herself. But what if it was Patamon who was still in his adult form when he got back into the real world? You'd think people would notice an angel walking around in public. In episode 4, the gang brings a group of Gotsumon with them into the real world. They stay at the child level. Later when Ken brings Wormmon back into the real world, he stays as a child. It seems that the default form of Digimon in the real world is child, so I really don't know what makes Vmon, Hawkmon and Armadillomon so special. I guess it's just easier for the writers to pretend that their baby forms are stuffed animals. When the kids enter the digital world, their monster friends automatically evolve from the baby level to child. Armadillomon says that they go, quote, back to normal when they come into the digital world. What? That's not how it works. You know, in Season 1 there wasn't too much travel in between worlds, but soon after Venom Vandemon was defeated, our heroes returned to the digital world. However, Koromon, Tsunomon and the others didn't automatically turn into their child forms. They had to evolve, just like any other time. And hey, I get it, travel between worlds is a more common thing in Season 2, so they don't want to waste time on an evolution sequence in every episode. My problem is that rather than trying to come up with a way to solve that issue that makes sense, they simply chose to change the rules of the universe. I don't like that. If the partners were kept at the child stage in the real world, this wouldn't be a problem. But wouldn't it be harder to hide the non-plushy looking child Digimon from the people of the real world? Yes, that would be harder, but that could be a part of the challenge of being a chosen child in the real world. Why do you think Izzy kept Tentomon in his closet? Why do you think Agumon wore that hoodie? It wasn't a fashion statement, I'll tell you that much. They handled this just fine in Season 1. And the first arc of Digimon Tamers, also known as the third season, is all about keeping child Digimon out of sight from nosy adults. Gilmon practically had to live in a box. Episode 3 starts with Ken in civilian clothing, looking at Kaiser shit on his computer. This is the first time we see his civilian form. This is the sort of information we shouldn't learn until our characters find out. Why is it here? It adds nothing to the episode, and it ruins the revelation that comes a few episodes later. The main characters haven't even met Ken yet. They first learn of his existence while watching the news in this episode. While being interviewed, Ken's dad says that having a genius for a son is like the ugly duckling laying a golden egg. Gee, he just called his wife an ugly duckling and she just stood there and took it. So, the reason Ken is on the news is because he's a genius, and the reason for that is that he was infected by these evil seeds 2 years ago. So, did it really take 2 years for him to grow a super brain? And did it really take 2 years for people to notice? Hey, here's the thing I want to talk about. Ken arrives home and on the living room wall hangs this, well, recipe, I guess. It's like a cookbook poster or something. Every time we see this apartment, the poster is always there in the background, and it has always fascinated me, mostly because they spelled how to make wrong and with an exclamation point. And over on this side it says Tomato 5 paste. I think it's supposed to be tomato. I'm starting to notice a pattern of the producers not getting the English right when they try to implement it in the show. First Digimental up, and now this. Later in the show, Davis goes to America, more specifically, Miami. I don't know what to say. How about you double check your work before it goes to air next time? I'm disappointed. Hey look, they finally got it right in episode 45. Well, too little too late. Over in the digital world, the Kaiser shows up via hologram to roast the kids. He tells them that they're not worthy of being in the digital world. As soon as the hologram fades, he shows up for real riding a Tyrannomon. Why didn't you just do that from the start? There was no need for the hologram. What are you doing? Holograms are never even used in the series again. Why is this here? Then it's fighting time. Gatomon complains that she and Patamon can't evolve. They want to fight too. Hey Gatomon, remember in Season 1 when you took on all of the good guys in adult form single-handedly? Now would be a good time to do that again. Anyways, TK and Kari find Digimentals with the crests of hope and light on them. Gatomon immediately assumes that these belong to TK and Kari. Now hold up just 1 second here. Did the Digimental of courage belong to Tai? Did the Digimentals of love and knowledge belong to Sora or Izzy? No! So why would you assume that these belong to TK and Kari? Everything points to these belonging to some new kid, but for some reason Gatomon is right. Why? Why out of the 8 chosen children of Season 1 are only TK and Kari able to pull out their own Digimentals? Why are they deemed important enough to be part of both the Season 1 and the Season 2 groups? As they approach their Digimentals, their Digivices morph into those of the other Season 2 kids, the D3 models. TK asks the same question we all ask: why? Wait, we're not a burden anymore? Hey, in early Season 1 we saw that child Digimon can at least put a dent in the stronger ones. The only reason you're a burden is because you don't even try. And ooh, look at that. The Tyrannomon defeated all of Flamedramon, Horsemon and Digimon, but since Pegasmon and Nefertumon are main monsters in this episode, they are of course portrayed as super strong. In episode 4 we see that Gabumon has been captured as a slave by a bunch of Vegemon. I remember this as my least favorite episode in the whole series. The only thing that keeps this from being filler is that the Season 2 kids meet TK's older brother Matt from the first season. However, it's not like any of them have any special dynamic with him. They're like cardboard cutouts. Hey, how about the scene between Matt and TK to establish what their relationship is like? In Season 1, Matt was very overprotective of his brother. How has this changed over the last 3 years? Oh right, there's no such scene. This whole episode has nothing to offer, not even any new monsters to distract us. It just feels like desperate nostalgia for Season 1. That seems to be the only reason they crammed Matt, Gabumon, Vegemon, Casimon and even Garurumon into this episode. Ugh. At least the following Joe and Mimi episodes will give us Ebidramon and Roachmon, neither of which were in Season 1. Yippee. Let's get this over with. Gabumon escapes his imprisonment and is washed up on shore. Then he collapses here and he sends an SOS somehow. How did he do that? I can buy that you could send one via these TV sets. In fact, it's confirmed that the kids can be contacted via TV set in the next episode, but Gabumon collapsed before he could reach the TV. Yeah, I don't know. At this point we're introduced to Davy's sister, who is a worthless character. She's a fan of Matt's band and has a crush on him. She appears a few times over the series, but it's never important. Her only function is to annoy Matt, who constantly rejects her. She tries to tag along when Matt, Tai and Izzy go camping during the Chimeramon crisis, but Matt just leaves her on the side of the road. I would have done the same, but she still doesn't get that he isn't interested. There's a whole subplot focusing on her trying to reach the camping site. This time could have been spent on some character moments for our main characters, but no. We have to see Davy's sister hitchhike to the wrong location instead. Her story doesn't even amount to anything in the end. It's like the Davis-Kari romance, with the exception that Davis' sister actually moves on from Matt in the end. After she sees that he and Sora are an item, she moves on to harass Joe's brother instead. Without even having met him. No real person would ever do that. She's not a character, she's just another one-dimensional failed attempt at humor. Back in the digital world, Davis wants to attack the town that has been seized by the Kaiser's Digimon. Okay, so this here Dark Tower is what sends out the bad thoughts to the Digi-slaves. Davis suggests that they go and destroy the tower, which would stop the slave signals. However, TK says that's a bad idea, because the Kaiser will use enslaved Digimon to defend the tower.
まあ進化すればあっという間さ。ダメだよ。そんなことしたら人質のデジモンたちを盾にするかも。
そうね。人質を救出しに来たのに、それじゃ本末転倒だわ。
But every enemy you've faced so far in this season has been an enslaved monster, and every time the purpose of fighting them is to destroy the evil ring that makes them bad. How is it any different this time? And once that tower is down, the bad monsters will become good again, right? Fuck me, the script is making so little sense that it's actually making me take Davis' side this time. Anyways, instead of following Davis' plan and attack innocent enslaved Digimon, they attack innocent enslaved Digimon. They don't even try to be peaceful here. How about threatening the Digimon with violence and then forcing them to give up? Then lock them in the prison and destroy the tower. Once they're nice veggies again, just release them. Maybe TK could have floated this idea as an option to show how he contrasts with Davis. To still have an action scene, something could have gone wrong that was outside TK's control. Maybe Vegimon's tentacle arms could work as a key in a desperate situation, allowing them to escape and catch up with the kids before they destroyed the Dark Tower. This would cause the scene to actually have something going on, and it would also show us that Digimon has value. As it is now, they are not more than low-tiered bad guys, despite being on the same power level as the likes of Greymon and Garurumon. Digimon aren't intimidating physically, so the least you could do is give them some form of advantage. Next up is what should have been a tense scene. Our heroes are infiltrating enemy territory, but they're walking out in the open. Maybe this could work in the cover of darkness, but during the day, I don't see this happening. TK and Davis have a little chat about him meeting Davis' sister earlier. It's a nice little window into Davis' family life. We learn that he doesn't particularly like his sister, which is something that upsets Matt. He thinks that siblings should be a team. This is a good little character moment, as it tells us how Matt views the world. However, the moment is ruined immediately, as Matt prepares to clock Davis right in the face. All because Davis said he doesn't care for his sister, a family relationship which Matt has no inside knowledge about. This makes you really question if Matt really deserves that crest of friendship. As they reach the tower on top of a hill, they wonder how they'll get down. How about you destroy the tower and then just walk down the same way you came up? No. Instead of quickly attacking the tower, the group just stands around, wasting time. This allows Digimon to ambush them. In the ensuing fight, Red Digimon accidentally cracks the tower, which allows Gabumon to evolve. Wait, shouldn't the tower getting destroyed also make the rings stop working? Hang on, I'll do a whole separate chapter on this. Number 12. Evil Kaiser Tech. The series plays pretty fast and loose with how the evil rings and dark towers really work. But the basics are that the Kaiser has a black D3 digivice that sends out radio signals that prevent evolution. He transmits these signals via dark towers, meaning that evolution is impossible in every territory he controls. If a tower is destroyed, the rings stop working and everyone is a good guy again. So, with a dark tower you get the package deal. Evil Digimon and no evolution. So how come in this episode, one becomes possible but not the other? Gabumon evolves, but the Digimon are still evil. Aren't those two like connected? Oh, it turns out that the tower wasn't fully destroyed, just cracked. Once the Digimon fully destroy the tower, the Digimon are nice guys again. Wait, so that means that the towers have like a life bar. Once you get it down to yellow health, evolution is possible. But you have to kill it fully in order to defeat the rings. That seems odd. But there are worse problems than that. In episode 5, Ebidramon is still a bad boy even after the tower goes down. That doesn't make any sense. That evil ring shouldn't be evil anymore. It should just be a ring. Hey, Here's something that bothered me even as a kid. Once the evil rings possess you, your eyes turn red. Starmon has blue eyes when he introduces himself. It's not until he reveals his ring that his eyes turn red. Hey, how did you keep them blue before if you have been evil this whole time? Did I have contact lenses in the Old West? Here's another thing that isn't very consistent. How come Starmon, Hangyomon, Igamon, and Digitamamon are lucid enough to have a conversation? Other Digimon affected by rings and spirals go completely feral. There shouldn't be any reasoning with them. Another oddity is this episode where Angemon degenerates back into Patamon just by entering an area with a dark tower. Why? Something like this never happens in the series again. Why doesn't this affect Andromon or Gardromon or any other Digimon above the child level? Airdramon and Tyrannomon never turn back into little dinosaurs when the Kaiser rides into a new area. What are the rules here? Are partner Digimon special in this regard just because they have partners? If that's the case, it's kind of weird that having a partner is a strategical weakness. Hey, speaking of Andromon, his evil ring is defeated by Kari making him remember her. Also, the light of her Digivice seems to help. I guess it's like how the Digivices could defeat the Black Gears in Season 1, but if the Dark Towers are the ones sending out evil signals, wouldn't that signal still be going on even after the light shines? Or does the light destroy some important mechanism within the rings? By this point I'm just guessing and it's like I'm writing the scripts for the writers. That's a bad sign. We need to know how this stuff works in order to understand the stakes. By not having consistency in between episodes, there are no rules. Oh wait, the Kaiser theorizes at the end of the episode that Andromon only could defeat the ring because he's at the perfect level. So it wasn't because of the Digivice light? They never even tried that again, not even with Metal Greymon, so I'm just confused here. Once the tower in this city is destroyed, every Gardromon breaks down since their rings don't work anymore. Why does this happen? No other Digimon is damaged like that after their ring is destroyed. This whole show is just a mess. Number 13. Let's talk about Cody. The next episode is a lot like a repeat of the last one, but this time it's Gomamon who's tortured by the Kaiser. Oh boy. This time we get some insight into Cody's life. His father is dead, and he's practicing kendo with his grandfather. Cody is very formal and respectable, but he doesn't really do much other than worrying about social competence and being shy. He doesn't have any character traits that counter his formality, and thus he just comes off as a walking piece of drywall. This is the reason it's so out of character for him to actually be excited later on when he finds his second Digimental. It's one of the few times in the entire series that we see him display some actual emotion. A nice touch is that Cody is interrupted while introducing himself to Yo, and so he tries to do it over a few times throughout the episode. But every time he's interrupted by other things. However, people talking over Cody don't happen anywhere else in the series. Because of this, the interrupted greeting feels forced. Hey, maybe the writers could have built a character arc around Cody's shyness and people treating him like less of a person. What if it was a recurring thing that people interrupted him and didn't listen to him too much? At the end of the series, he could stand up for himself and stop people from talking over him. You might think that's not much of a character arc, but I assure you that it's at least more than what the show actually does with him in the end. Oh, and as the adventure is over, the characters prepare to leave for home. Cody finally takes the chance to greet Yo. How sweet! That's really... Wait, the two of you sat alone in a cave before. Why didn't you greet him back then, Cody? Is it just because the writers wanted a payoff to come at the end of the episode rather than in the middle, even if this makes no sense? Yeah, I think that's it. There's this joke here that I like. It's timed well.
それから僕の家にも遊びに来てください。おじいさま喜ぶと思います。
そうじゃあそのうち
私も行きたいな。いおりくんちのおはぎ美味しいだって。
ひかりちゃんが行くなら俺も行く。
大輔さんはダメ。
どうして
だってちびもんと一緒に私の分まで食べちゃうもん。
ちびもんお前来んなよ。
I like that Davis's first instinct is to say, Shibimon, you're not coming. So that's fun. What isn't fun is the next episode where the kids meet Mimi. Since it's Golden Week in Japan, the school is closed and they have to break into the building in order to go to the digital world. They're not doing this to fight the Kaiser, mind you. They're having a picnic. But breaking and entering is illegal. Why would you become a criminal for a picnic? Why not have the picnic in the real world instead? Your partner monsters are already with you in the real world. And why aren't you planning on fighting the Kaiser while you're here? Did you really assume that he would take the week off from taking over the world just because it's a holiday? Ugh. Well, the group goes to the digital world, where nothing happens. The writers have to shoehorn drama into the episode by having Armadillomon throw away Hawkmon's rice ball. For some reason, both Hawkmon and Yolei run after it. Then Mimi falls underground. I didn't edit this, by the way. Apparently all of these scenes take place underground somewhere, and yet there's the moon, even though it's still daylight up on the surface. But later, when the enemy is defeated, there's suddenly daylight down here too, and the rest of the group is just running towards Yolei and Mimi. I'm so confused. But wait, when Yolei first woke up underground, she couldn't send any messages to the group. Yet, as soon as the Dark Tower is destroyed, Cody receives a message from her. Does that mean that the towers are jamming the D-terminal signals? Then how could Tai send a message in episode 1? How does Kari send one from the Guardromon city in episode 7? And you'd think this row of towers from episode 19 would stop TK from sending any messages to Cody, but nope. Despite having said only a handful of lines to each other, Yolei and Mimi are suddenly best friends. It's shit. Oh yeah, and the enemy this time is these cockroaches who pop up and fight the girls. There's not much to it. Where did I get that spotlight from? Fuck it, I don't care. Number 14. I feel nothing. A TV set is destroyed as the kids are escaping home, leaving Kari behind in the digital world. Yolei and Cody have to eat dinner, which gives us the opportunity to have an episode focusing on just Davis and TK. Since the TV set in this area was destroyed, they pop into the one in the next area over. Hey, that's actually good thinking. This gives them time to have a conversation about their rivalry about Kari's love. The idea for this setup is great. Maybe this could actually get good now. But no, it doesn't. Their conversation doesn't amount to much. Davis tries to send TK home so that he himself can play the hero, but that's about it. Davis's jealousy becomes worse once he realizes that Patamon can evolve into Angemon and that Gatomon also has an angel evolution. Speaking of which, Patamon evolves into Angemon only to destroy the evil ring that has corrupted a single Guardromon. Once the ring is destroyed, we never see this Guardromon again. It doesn't even help opening the doors. To get in, Angemon has to destroy them. Hey, how about you do something interesting with this Guardromon? Have him help you in some way. Pretend you're his prisoners or something. You know, like you did with Vegemon. It worked great back then. But no, instead it's just the same old good guys moving to destroy a Dark Tower. Wait, where did Yolei and Cody come from? They were home eating dinner. Have they really already finished eating, met up at school, arrived through the TV set that's in the area next to the city, and then come here, all in this short time? Davis and TK arrived not 5 minutes ago. Who's writing this? The sad part is that Yolei and Cody aren't even important to the following scenes. With minimal effort, they could have written this episode without the two of them coming back. It could have been all about Davis and TK working together. But no. I've already mentioned the episode where a Deltamon is threatening to eat Davis's friends and he can only choose one to save. Instead, he sacrifices himself in order to let the others live. This feels really hollow and fake, since we haven't seen him develop a friendship with most of these people. Sure, he has a crush on Kari, and I guess he only sees TK as a friendly rival. But can you honestly tell me what kind of relationship he has with Yolei or Cody? He hasn't had a meaningful conversation with any of these characters. Oh yeah, and this is the episode where our heroes connect the dots about the Kaiser's identity. The first half of the runtime is taken up by the worst edited soccer game I think I've ever seen. It's Davis versus Ken, and Davis slide tackles into Ken to make him bleed. Later, in the digital world, we see that the Kaiser has an identical wound. This is sort of a clever reveal, but if the digital world can create new clothes, you'd think it would be able to create a band-aid too. And also, wouldn't this be more effective if we didn't already know that Ken was the Kaiser? Maybe you should have waited with revealing that until now. Number 15. Evil Dinosaur Man. We've reached our first mini-arc of sorts. Episode 9, 10 and 11 covers the Digimon Kaiser enslaving Tai's Agumon. And as can be expected by now, there are a lot of things that don't make any sense. First of all, the Kaiser wants Agumon to turn into Metal Greymon, yet he can only make him turn into Skull Greymon. Okay, but why can't he settle for Skull Greymon? All he wants is a powerful monster, and Skull Greymon checks that box. I mean, sure, the evil rings can't control him because he's at the perfect level, but the Kaiser doesn't even try for Skull Greymon once he updates his rings into spirals. And secondly, why does he settle for Metal Greymon? Why not go all the way to Mega? You could at least try to have him evolve into War Greymon, or at least float the idea. I really don't like that the Kaiser can evolve Greymon here. Even though he doesn't become Metal Greymon, it's still an evolution of a monster who isn't his partner. His Dark D3 Digivice isn't some special super gadget. It can communicate with Dark Towers, but that's because those are his technology. Greymon evolving here seemingly implies that any Digivice could potentially evolve any Digimon, even if it already has a human partner. That just seems wrong to me. The partner Digimons have a special bond with their humans. Tai needed to push Greymon to inhumane limits to make him evolve into Skull Greymon. Tai needed to be courageous in order to unlock Metal Greymon. And Tai needed to risk his life in order for War Greymon to show up. You can't just have the Kaiser do it with a press of a button here. At this point, I'd like to refer to the video games Anode and Cathode Tamer. They take place in between seasons 1 and 2. There's this guy Ryo who has to partner up with Agumon to rescue Tai. However, this time Agumon can't evolve since Tai isn't present. I think that makes sense. So why doesn't Tai need to be here when the Kaiser evolves him to Skull Greymon?
なんだよあいつスカルグレイモンよ
How does Kari know Skull Greymon? She wasn't there the last time he appeared. She should be as clueless as Davis here. Why wasn't this line just given to TK instead? Anyways, after evolving, Skull Greymon destroys the Dark Tower himself. Isn't that ass backwards? How could he evolve in the first place if there's a Dark Tower nearby? For several episodes now, they've told us that Dark Towers prevent evolution. But I guess they don't when the script requires them not to. Why are TK and Kari so surprised when Skull Greymon turns back into Agumon? And how did you identify it as Tai's Agumon? All Agumon look the same. Why couldn't you tell when you saw him as Greymon before?
おや太一さんのアグモンが守っていたエリアが黒く変わった
Wait, what? How much ground did he himself have to cover? That's insane! He's one child monster. The Kaiser primarily uses adults to conquer new areas. How did Agumon defend all of that by himself? Then the Kaiser updates his evil rings into evil spirals, which somehow changes everything. Now he can make Agumon evolve into Metal Greymon rather than Skull Greymon. But why would the Emperor's mind control tool change how evolution works? I get that the rings can't control Skull Greymon since he's at the perfect level, but Greymon is an adult. He wouldn't be able to resist the ring until he has finished turning into the perfect level. And by that point it would already be too late. Once the Kaiser has forced you into becoming Metal Greymon, you shouldn't be able to control yourself and somehow turn into another form, right? Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say is that becoming Skull Greymon rather than Metal Greymon can't be a conscious decision on Greymon's part. I don't know if I explained that well enough, but none of this makes any sense to me and I'm so confused, so let's just move on.
メタルグレイモンギガデストロイヤーが必殺技の完全体デジモン色が青いのはウイルス型だからだ
Wait, why did it turn to virus all of a sudden? You might think it's because he's under Kaiser control and evolved using his evil Digivice, and sure, Skull Greymon and the later Stingmon are both virus Digimon. But earlier we saw that the Kaiser had evolved Agumon into Greymon off screen. Virus Greymon is a monster that exists in Digimon. It's a blue Greymon, and this Greymon isn't blue. So where did the virus come from? The spiral? Agumon didn't turn into his virus version, Black Agumon, when he started wearing the spiral. And later in the show, we'll see a Mega Seadramon with a spiral, but Mega Seadramon doesn't turn into his virus form, Waru Seadramon, either. So where is this virus coming from? I don't know. In the following episode, the Kaiser gets his hand on Patamon. Oh my, it looks like Patamon will become evil too. Who will he evolve into? A virus Holy Angemon? Vandemon? Neo Devimon? Lucemon? Oh, no one. He's saved by Garurumon. Why can only Agumon have an evil evolution? Davis is suddenly worried about Metal Greymon being killed if they destroy the spiral. This is odd for a few reasons. None of the Digimon possessed by the rings were killed when the rings were destroyed in the past. It seems like Davis is saying this simply to fool the audience into thinking that the stakes are higher this time around. There's also the fact that Davis has been characterized as someone who jumps into trouble without thinking too hard about the consequences. He's reckless. Why is he the one who worries about Metal Greymon's survival? I'll tell you why. It's because this is the episode where Davis will activate the Digimental of Friendship, which necessitates a conflict about friendship. And this is the conflict that the writers came up with. Davis doesn't want to attack the Kaiser, since there's a risk that Patamon might get hurt. TK insists that they take that risk, but Davis doesn't understand. TK then puts himself in danger, which once again Davis doesn't understand. The others attack Metal Greymon, and Davis realizes that it must have been tough to say that they have no other choice. He then decides that being concerned for his friend's safety is pathetic.
俺はタケルの気持ちを分かってやれなかったのに頭を助けてやることもできなかったのに畜生
This activates the Digimental. This episode has very confusing thoughts about what friendship is all about. It's trying to say that a good friend is someone who punches you in the face and who engages in violence with you when there's conflict. But you could easily say that the opposite is true. There's an interesting discussion to be had here about what a good friend really is, but the episode seems to be more concerned about giving Davis his power-up so that Lightramon can defeat the evil Dino monster. I mean, you could as easily say that Davis was a better friend all along, since he's actually concerned for Agumon's safety. Shouldn't that be enough to activate the Digimental? Davis's emotional dilemma feels so fake, because it's so out of character for him. When they first find the Digimental, he doubts that he is worthy of it. Why would Davis of all people doubt himself about being worthy of the Digimental of Friendship? He has too much confidence, and he wouldn't think twice about this sort of thing. A better way to handle this would have been to have him super confident in his friendship skills at first, but still failing to pick it up. This would force him to rethink how he treats people, which in turn could be what makes him worthy of the Digimental. The way this is handled in the show comes off very undeserved. Davis already had his friendship moment a few episodes earlier with Deltamon, and I've already suggested that the Digimental activation should have been written for that situation instead. In the end, Agumon was evil Metal Greymon for what, an hour at most? It depends on how long they rode that train thing, and sure, the Kaiser managed to conquer a lot of new areas during this period, but I don't think Metal Greymon was a real threat. The scary aspect of this mini-arc is the fact that a good guy turned bad. It's the natural next step after having the Kaiser turn generic Digimon into bad guys. I wish they would have done more with this concept. Maybe have Metal Greymon ravage the digital world for several episodes. Maybe he even becomes the Kaiser's right hand, like how Chimeramon will be later. We could have some quiet moments with Tai, who has to deal with the trauma that goes along with this. Maybe Davis tries to be there for him as a friend during these hard times, which could develop his understanding of friendship. Oh, or even better, develop the rivalry between Davis and TK further, and then have it be TK's Patamon that gets possessed by the Spiral rather than Agumon. Maybe the Kaiser has some nasty plans for Holy Angemon's Heaven's Gate attack, you know, the one that sends his opponents to oblivion. Maybe Kari becomes even closer to TK to support him, which will make Davis even more jealous, but in the end he has to overcome that because TK is his friend, and that's more important right now. This arc could have been longer and covered quite a few episodes, but I would rather have that than the filler episodes with Matt, Joe and Mimi. Number 16. The Dark World. This time, Kari is feeling sort of depressed. She's somehow transported to a parallel dimension known as the Dark World. This is another part of the season that would have benefited from spanning several episodes. Maybe Kari could have this dilemma going on throughout the season, and maybe it could have culminated with her evolving Gatomon via her Digimental of Light, because that would be the opposite of dark. And it's the Dark World, you know? This is one of the few episodes in Season 2 that I would actually call good. It has some nice character moments. TK, who is usually calm and collected, gets freaked out when he doesn't know what's up with Kari, and he's blaming himself when she disappears. Kari is depressed and scared, but still does all she can to help these Hangyomon, or whatever they are. At the end, we find out that Hangyomon isn't their true form, so are they even Digimon? This isn't a digital world after all. Dagomon is a Digimon, but he isn't one of them. He's their god. How did he get here? What does it all mean? I don't know, and the episode doesn't tell us. In fact, the whole series doesn't tell us. Dagomon is built up to be some super boss, the big bad. They even show him rising from the ocean before the title card shows up. No other episode has a cold open, but they never do anything with him. He's not even in the episode until the very end, where he's just ominously looming over the ocean. And then we never see him again. It's like the show is teasing its audience by saying, hey, look at this cool and horrific villain. You want to see more of him? Well, too bad. Why even include Dagomon if he's not relevant to the story? What a waste. Number 17. Yolei's Digimental. The kids go to the digital world to meet Mimi again. Last time they met, Yolei and Mimi got along swimmingly, and now the show is pretending that they're some sort of dream team. Of course, there wasn't much interaction between them, so we'll just have to take their word for it. Like with so much else in the series, it comes off as fake, since there has been no time to establish such a friendship yet. They've had like 2 conversations, and none of them has had any strong effect on Yolei. Why does she feel like this towards Mimi of all people? What's so special about her? You don't know each other. This time, Mimi has brought a friend from America, Michael. For some reason, he speaks fluent Japanese. We never learn why or how. A few years ago, Michael saw a Gorillamon, which made him a chosen child. Oh, would you look at that? A wild Gorillamon appeared. What a coincidence! In the span of a few seconds, Yolei develops a crush on Michael. This causes her to become super jealous of Mimi all of a sudden. We've never seen a hint of this jealousy in Yolei's personality before, and we'll never see it again. Because of this, it comes off as very out of character behavior. In other words, bad writing. Jealousy has mostly been one of Davis's traits before. It would have been nice to see a scene with just her and Davis discussing their jealousies. Such a conversation could make Yolei realize that jealousy is bad, while Davis would remain stuck with his way of thinking. But of course, this never happens. But wow, I just realized that Yolei has a crush on Michael before he even says a word. I would like to jump into the screen at this point and pull Yolei to the side and ask her, hey, please tell me about this Michael guy. What's his personality? Who is he? What do you see in him? Why do you like him all of a sudden? He has no character traits. He's just the bare minimum needed to have Yolei get the Digimental of purity at the end of the episode. Speaking of Yolei and romance, Back when Yolei first went to the digital world, she noted how warm Sora's hands were, which was weird since she was wearing gloves at the time. But the reason I bring this up is that it seems to suggest a homoerotic desire within her. I mean, soon after this, she did activate the Digimental of love. A similar thing occurred between Yolei and Mimi the first time they met. Yolei had this fantasy, which I don't know quite how to interpret. I wouldn't mind if Yolei turned out to be gay, but any potential homosexual future for her is squashed, as we later see that she will end up marrying Ken. So what was the point of this and this? Why have a setup with no payoff? Am I reading too much into this? Yeah, possibly. Yolei also admits that she judges people on how they look. If they're cool, she thinks they're good. How come both she and Davis had to be twisted so out of character for their second Digimental? Yolei never has a consistent personality throughout the series. As I mentioned before, the writers basically created the new characters by merging two of the Season 1 kids. When you merge two very different characters like the caring tomboy Sora and the egoistic girly girl Mimi into one character, well, it's no surprise that the result is going to end up very inconsistent and contradictory. In one episode, Yolei is energetic and overly excited. In others, she's the calmest person around. There's one episode where she says socially incompetent things, which never happens again. Here's a clip of a Yolei who doesn't want to hurt anyone, and here's one who thinks fighting is cool. In the penultimate episode, we find out she's been feeling suffocated by her siblings her whole life, even though nothing in the series has pointed towards that. What is Yolei's character? There's nothing holding it all together. These character traits just pop up at random when the script requires it, and then they disappear just as quick. In the end, she comes off as a mentally unstable person. I'd say she's the most inconsistent character in the whole series. You never know what you're gonna get with Yolei. Maybe you think that these are signs of character development, but that would require a starting point that slowly transforms into something else. With Yolei, there's no solid foundation. Anyways, Yolei admits to the others that she has personality flaws in this episode, causing a Digimental to show up from nowhere. I find it odd that they didn't even establish that there was a Digimental around this time. In every other Digimental episode, there's always this scene where the characters find it, and then they have to figure out who it belongs to and how to activate it. There's none of that this time. But anyways, Hawkmon evolves into Shurimon and defeats the evil dinosaur Eggman. Oh yeah, Digitamamon was the bad guy this time. I didn't mention that before. In the following episode, Shurimon develops a rivalry with Igamon. Ninja versus ninja. Neat! I like this rivalry. The idea that not only humans have character arcs, but also the partner Digimon, is a good idea. However, just like Dagomon, this is something that I never bothered following up on. Igamon says we'll meet again, but nope. We never see him again. When I was a kid, I used to pretend that the later Blossomon was in fact Igamon who had evolved, but that headcanon doesn't even work. Blossomon is a fake monster, a transformed Dark Tower. Next is the episode where Cody finds the Digimental of Sincerity. The episode opens with the kids stuck in an underwater oil rig. You're probably wondering how they ended up here. Well, you don't need to wonder for long. We're given a flashback to show the kids entering the oil rig just a few seconds into the episode. Why is this episode structured this way? What motivation was there for the writer to use this storytelling technique in this episode? Holding back information from the viewer via non-chronological scenes can be very effective, but what's the point if that information is given less than a minute later, especially if it doesn't change how we see anything? We learn that they've been sitting around here for hours, doing nothing. How come they haven't found this submarine until now? It seems to be right out in the open. What did they do all this time? Here's an idea. If you're going to do an episode underwater, why not tie it back to Dagomon and the Dark Ocean? Sure, at this point I'm just desperate to find a way to make Dagomon relevant to the plot, but that's just because he's such a missed opportunity. Maybe the Digimental of Sincerity could have played its part later in the season instead. When Ken and Cody have trust issues, Ken could have gotten lost at the bottom of the Dark Ocean, and Cody could have to activate the Digimental in order to save him, or something like that. I'm just spitballing here. With that, the 8 Digimentals have all been activated. Why did we have to unlock all of them in the first third of the season? Why not spread them out more and let the characters' personal journeys dictate when the Digimentals are found, rather than just dropping them in a few episodes apart? Now it just seems like items on a checklist that the writers were rushing through. Number 18. Digi-death and Digi-ghosts. In the climax of the underwater episode, Whalemon shows up again, even though he was killed at the end of Season 1. This is consistent with what was established in Season 1, what with Digimon being reborn in the Village of Beginnings. The unfortunate consequence of this is that since death doesn't exist, the stakes are significantly lowered. It also devalues the sacrifices that Leomon, Piccalomon and the others made, since they're just going to come back to life again. I guess that means that Apocalypse and the Dark Masters should be around here somewhere too. However, Digimon who die in the real world do not reincarnate. Such is the case with Wizardmon, who was killed by Vandemon in Season 1. Instead of being reborn, he wanders around Odaiba as a ghost. I'm fine with this, but why does Wizardmon haunt these recordings? That's an asshole thing to do, and not very in character for him. How do Digi-ghosts work exactly? I can buy that they could appear like Wizardmon's shadow on the footage. I mean, he's a digital monster after all. But apparently he can interact with technology too. He mutes the sound of this CD player somehow. This seems like something evil Digi-ghosts would love to exploit. Which leads me to my next question. Where are the rest of the ghosts? Monsters like Deathmeramon, Dark Tyrannomon, Bakemon, Phantomon, and many more got killed in the real world. How come we only meet Wizardmon? So Wizardmon suddenly decides to play Mr. Cryptic and tells Gatomon that they're not strong enough to defeat their true enemy yet.
敵には今君たちが持っている力だけでは勝てない。
敵？デジモンカイザーのことか。
敵は今見えてるだけの相手ではない。もっともっと大きな闇を引き込んでいる。闇は力だけでは追い払うことはできない。
This true enemy does not refer to the Kaiser, but to Vandemon, who is the final bad guy of the season. Why did Wizardmon wait until now to tell the kids? What has he been doing all this time? Why wait 3 years? Did he find out just a few days ago? How? And why is he so mysterious?
闇に飲み込まれたものを本来の姿に戻すには
The one who has fallen. This line is so cryptically written. I don't even know who it refers to. So far, Wizardmon has been talking about Vandemon. This leads me to believe that Oikawa is the one who has fallen, since he has been possessed by Vandemon. However, this could just as easily refer to the Kaiser, especially since the rest of what Wizardmon says, the stuff about kindness and the golden light, those are things that are related to the Kaiser's defeat. So, I don't know, I'm confused. Why wouldn't Wizardmon just tell them all he knows as clearly as possible in order to help them as much as possible?
優しさが黄金の輝きを放つ。優しさだけではいけない。それだけでは黄金の輝きが必要なんだ。
Why would you say it like that? Okay, so let's translate. Kindness refers to Ken, who has the crest of kindness, and the golden light refers to Magnamon, who is yet another one of Veemon's evolutions, who will be unlocked shortly. So, in essence, Wizardmon is saying, restoring the Kaiser to Ken will allow Veemon to evolve into Magnamon, but Ken's help will not be enough. You will need Magnamon. So, is Wizardmon's warning about Vandemon or the Kaiser? Well, as it turns out, none of this fits with how Vandemon is defeated in the end. Wizardmon's prophecy implies that Ken's crest of kindness will somehow help Veemon turn into Magnamon in the ultimate fight, which would then kill Vandemon for good. But that's not at all how it happens. The hopes and dreams of children is what kills him. So, is Wizardmon talking about the Kaiser here? Well, the crest of kindness does show up before Magnamon's Digimental is revealed, and Magnamon does defeat Chimeramon, which is what brings Ken around to the light side. But is Magnamon and his golden light really an integral part in this victory? I mean, Magnamon wins because he's a strong monster. The good guys didn't even battle Chimeramon with a full army. Sure, they use their 5 armor monsters, but none of the Season 1 partners are here. That would add 6 more combatants to the fight. And remember in Season 1 how every Digimon who had been freed from the Black Gears came and helped the heroes during the raft building scene? Wouldn't it have been satisfying if they did something similar here? Like if all the monsters that were freed from Kaiser enslavement also joined the fight? Chimeramon would be super outnumbered. And I mean, in the end, it's just one perfect monster we're talking about here. My point is that saying that Magnamon was needed doesn't ring true to me. So, is Wizardmon talking about yet another enemy? One that Magnamon truly was needed for? Maybe Wizardmon is referring to the 3rd movie, Digimon Hurricane Landing, Transcendent Evolution, the Golden Digimentals. Magnamon pops up again in this movie, but he only defeats Cherubimon here. Or maybe Wizardmon is talking about that chapter in the V-Tamer manga, when Parallelmon sends Davis and Vmon into a parallel universe with another version of Tai, and Vmon evolves into Magnamon to defeat Parallelmon. So, is either Cherubimon or Parallelmon the enemy that Wizardmon was talking about? I'm gonna say no. I don't even know if these two are canon. How does Wizardmon know this stuff about the future anyways? I can buy that he knows that Vandamon has possessed Oikawa, but how does he know about the Digimon Kaiser? He has been stuck in the real world since before Ken became a chosen child. How does he know that a crest of kindness even exists? How does he know that Ken has it? And how does he know that Ken is in possession of the Golden Digimental? How would he know that this would be the key to end evil? Well, he wouldn't. And hey, that's it for part 2. Next time I'll talk about Chimeramon, fusions, and the Rio games. So don't miss that, I guess. Bye!